Okay, we're here. We're live. It's ThinkTech. It's Friday afternoon. We're doing a ThinkTech Talks with Erik Solderholm of Solderholm Bus, which is a company that sells buses.
Yes.
To make that clear at the outset.
Yes, I'm a bus dealer. I'm a small bus dealer. I have my own agenda. My agenda is to sell buses.
Okay.
My company, Solderholm Sales and Leasing, we've been selling buses. We're the largest local licensed bus dealer in Hawaii. We've been selling buses for 25 years. We sell to all the major counties in Hawaii: Roberts, Polynesian Adventure Tours, Inoa, the city and county of Honolulu. Sold all the handy vans to the city since 1995.
Wow, what a tremendous! On your tombstone, they'll say this man knew how to sell a bus.
Well, my wife says, well, I say I'm the greatest bus salesman in the Western world, but my wife says that Fred, my sales manager, is better. And he's been working me for 30 years. So you show me a salesman in this town working for one dealer for 30 years. There are a few guys out there, but he's put up with me for 30 years. So
next time he comes on the show.
Okay? He comes on the show. You know?
So now we entitled this, you're going to be a little surprised, Where Have All the Buses Gone? And, that comes out of a kind of a nostalgic memory, if you will, of days gone by. I want to say the 60s, the 70s, and probably before that, before statehood for sure. When you looked out on the street in the morning and you saw the little school bus, and it would come by and be a friendly fellow in there and open the door, and the kids would go on the bus and the bus would take them to school. That's my recollection anyway. They were everywhere in the islands, these buses, and there were a lot of operators, a lot of buses, and a lot of kids on a lot of buses. And somewhere along the line, they went away.
We have less buses. I mean, what's happened, there's a whole multitude of problems. It's not just one thing, but it's the constraints of the state budget where they've cut bus runs. And a whole bunch of things happen when you cut bus runs. People can't get their kids to school. The kids, there's truancy problems. You got a lot of people out on the North Shore, and I grew up in Kailua, local haole boy. And I remember I rode the bus to school myself. And so what's happened is you get people on the North Shore in Waianae, where they have to take a city bus into town to get to work. So they have to leave their children at home. They're not like the Kahala people or something where they can basically, shutter their kid to school. So what happens is there's, the buses aren't there running, or they're not running as often and things like that. They've consolidated routes. And so what happens is these kids sometimes don't go to school, and the family doesn't know what's going on. And then if they
they think the kid went to school, but the kid never gets to school.
Yeah. And
that means he's in trouble.
Yeah, then, and we don't have the truancy offers that we used to have when I was a kid. So, but what happens then, if the people then can wait around until 8 o'clock and drive them to school, then instead of 72 kids on one bus, or 84 kids or 90 kids on one bus, what you have is a whole bunch of cars going down Kamehameha Highway or Farrington Highway, which are beyond capacity right now. And so that's it's priorities. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about funding priorities. Now,
well, actually, in the larger picture, what we're talking about is the traffic.
Yeah.
We're talking about congestion. And we're talking, you mentioned there's a lot of factors in play. We'll cover them today. Yeah. But in terms of congestion, there are a lot of things that contribute to congestion. Yes. And the fact that all the parents take the kids separately or try by themselves in their big cars in the middle of rush hour to school every day has got to be a major contributing feature for congestion.
You're adding to the traffic. Now, a few years ago when we had some severe budget crunches and Governor Abercrombie had to make some tough decisions, I understand that. But we're in a booming economy now. Tourism is off the chart, and there's funding, and those bus runs should be restored. I've met with Ray LaRue, who is the head of student transportation for the state of Hawaii DOE, and he's a good man, and he's trying to make the tough choices and things like that. But there's only so much money. But there needs to be money to put into school buses because it has so many effects. It takes cars off the road. It gets kids to school. The U.S. school bus is the most safe bus one of the most safest bus in the world. All around the world, except for Canada and the United States, basically kids ride in transit buses. And transit buses
You mean
are
regular
transit buses. And transit buses are not designed for children. They're not designed for little kids. They don't have the crash tests. They don't have the pull tests and things like that on the seats.
These are tests to see what happens if the bus crashes?
The school bus has seats, and it's compartmentalization. And what happens is the seats are designed to be only so far apart, and they have a very high back, and they're designed for kids to go thrown into the next back of the seat. Transit buses are not designed.
They're flown all over the place.
They're designed for adults.
Yeah.
And so we have one of the most safest standards, where we have these buses that are designated for school bus kids. Now, years ago, there were about 45 contractors in the state of Hawaii, in every little district.
The drivers. The driving companies.
The contractors that actually the state contracts to provide the transportation. Hawaii's a very unique place in so many ways, but one of the things is we have a single school district. Only state in the United States with a single school district, so we're one of the largest school districts in the United States. And in many other places, you'll have a school district that is essentially like a municipality, and they can raise taxes, and then they provide school bus transportation in that district. Yeah. So if you live in Marin County and you're in a high valued place, you're going to get very good schools, very good school transportation. The net effect of Hawaii is it's over the whole state. The idea was that it was supposed to be fair to everyone by having one school district, and so the net effect of it is the state doesn't own the buses. They own a very few some small buses, but for the most part, there's about 1,000 school buses in Hawaii, both in fixed route and in special ed. And of those buses, they're owned by approximately about 9 contractors. There used to be 45 contractors. There used to be every single little neighborhood. I grew up in Kailua. The original company was called Kailua Local. It's owned by the Tomasa family. Now it's called Tomasa School Bus. But each little area had their own little contractor. A lot of those have been bought out over the years by some of the bigger contractors. Originally it was Chaki Matsuo with Lapahoihoi Transportation. He bought a bunch of companies, and Roberts expanded from Kauai to Oahu and bought a bunch of companies. So we're now down to about 9 or 10 major companies left. But there's been a lot of criticism of those school bus contractors, saying that there's collusion and all these kinds of things. Well, they didn't
getting the contract,
getting the award of the contract, and saying that their costs are so much higher, and yet they brought in study after study from the mainland, and they've shown that the costs are relatively the same. What happens on the mainland that you're able to do is you can get these huge contractors that can move buses from state to state. Yeah, depending upon their contracts.
So if there's a shortage in one place, they move it to another place.
And that's hard to do in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Because shipping in a big school bus is probably over $10,000, and it's hard to do that. Now
it's hard to do it across the islands.
Yes,
too.
it's hard to do it across the islands. Shipping a school bus from between islands is a couple $1,000s, and so that goes back to the super ferry. But that's another whole story. But the thing is that what happens a lot of times is small business in Hawaii gets blamed for the problems. And the school bus contractors, they're all my customers. I'll put that out there right now. They're all my friends, and they get blamed all the time, saying, the high cost. The FBI did an investigation. The FBI came to me and asked me, and I said, I don't know. I'm not in the association. I'm a vendor. But the FBI will never tell you if they do an investigation. Either they indict the guys, or they never tell you that everybody's innocent. They don't believe anybody's innocent. They just say the investigation never culminated.
Never hear the results.
Never hear the results. And so, but the bottom line is they never did anything. They've done study after study, bringing in these mainland guys, and they come to the same conclusion that in relative terms, the cost of school bus operations in Hawaii is not dramatically above what it's on the mainland. And that's with all the costs we have, shipping costs, fuel costs, and labor costs. Now the state has done some things to try to alleviate that, try to bring the cost down. And there has been more competition in bidding between the contractors. One of the things they did that I suggested was they took the cap off the life of the bus. They used to be a small bus could be only used for 10 years. A big bus could be used for 15 years.
They had to retire it or take it off the line.
And some of those buses, you got to understand, a school bus, sometimes they do charters on the weekends or in the summer and times, but sometimes school buses, a 10-year-old school bus could have 100,000 miles on it, 150,000 miles on it, and maybe it's a 500,000 mile bus, but you have to retire it at 15 years. So they've got a system now that you can keep going. You have to go back and get it recertified, and that kind of thing.
That's like a safety check.
Yeah, safety check, but you actually have to reman it. But they need a standard of independent guy who's going to go out and certify these buses after 15 years. Now, that was a direct threat to me because I like to sell buses every 10 to 15 years, But
you'd rather have them retired at 10.
Yeah, I'd rather retired at 10, I sold one bus to Lindy Akita. And he had a school bus contract to Lanai, and the bus had less than 1,000 miles on it after 10 years because it took one girl back and forth to Lanai City. If you've ever been to Lanai City, it's not very far from one place to the other. And so that was kind of ridiculous.
It had to be retired.
It had to be retired at 10 years, and so that's a cost. But the other thing is that what they did, they used to link the school bus contractors' drivers' wages to HCEA salaries, and they delinked that. It used to be every time HCEA government worker got a salary raise, they could automatically increase the rates for the contractors. And when you think about that, you're doing a private contract. If you're going to do government wages, then just give government wages to everybody. I'll take it. And so so that that didn't make sense. But I think actually, if you really look at the true cost of school bus operations as a society, it's relatively cheap compared to the alternative of running 10, 20, 30 cars down the road every single day.
I think people have the thought that it's not efficient, that the school bus comes and it picks up the kids and then it has to make a zigzag pattern and go here and go there, and then it has to go to different schools, and it's never completely efficient. But I think you're going to tell me that's not true.
It's pretty efficient. I mean,
tell me how
when you
efficient.
can get 90 kids in one bus with one driver, now what's not efficient is the city and county of Honolulu. They're buying 40-foot transit buses with 33 seats in them. So how efficient is that? Now obviously I'm talking, two sides of the thing, because a transit bus is 2x2 seating and a school bus is 3x3 seating. And as you get kids beyond 6th grade or so in Hawaii, it's hard to go 3x3. I've done many school bus trips with my kids at Nu'uanu Elementary, and you can't put 3 6th graders on one seat, but still, they're still 45, 50 passenger buses. The net effect of what the city has done is by buying low floor buses, which makes sense. Low floor buses basically have less capacity because they have very large wheel wells and you have less seats. So you're down to 33 seats. If you were running city buses, actually there's a federal regulations against city buses competing with school buses. They can't, transit buses can go down the main thoroughfares in the streets and they can pick up school bus kids, but they can't do that zigzaggy path to go all around through the neighborhood.
That's the law right now.
That's the law right now, and so school buses actually is one of the most cheapest forms of transportation.
So where do we go off the track here? I mean, I would have thought that with the increase in that generation, the population of that generation, with the need to get them all to school efficiently, that we would have had plenty of yellow school buses all over town. And yet I don't see them anywhere.
Well, what happens in town, in the central district of Honolulu, they basically don't run very many school buses. The theory is that there's city buses in there. So it used to be if you were a mile from a school, you could get a school bus and they keep raising that. Now it went to 1.5 miles. I think they're going to 2 miles or something. But in town, I've known Jay for a number of years because we live in Nuuanu, and I have these conversations on my walks with him. And actually, our home in Nuuanu to Nuuanu Elementary, where my kids went to school, is over a mile. But by their regulations, you really don't have very much, so the major schools in town, Roosevelt, people like that, there isn't school bus transportation to many of those schools. It's really designed for the longer distances, the kids that are 10 miles away and things like that, where it's more efficient. It just comes down to restoring those runs. I mean, that's what it comes down to money.
After this break, we're going to take a break now. This is Erik Solderholm of Solderholm Bus. We're doing a ThinkTech Talks with him, and the title is Where Have All the Buses, or School Buses, or all the buses, where have they gone? We'll be right back after this break.
We want to thank our underwriters.
Hawaiian Electric Company and its affiliates Maui Electric on Maui and Hawaii Electric Light Company on Hawaii Island are deeply committed to the communities they serve.
Galen Ho is a senior executive of BAE Systems, a global defense, security, and aerospace company.
The High Tech Development Corporation, the state's leading technology agency, attached to the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism.
Castle and Cook Hawaii, with a time-honored legacy that spans more than 160 years and revolves around its mission of investing in Hawaii, creating communities, and providing for the needs of our state.
Hawaii Gas, formerly the Gas Company, a proponent of the Liquefied Natural Gas Initiative, helping Hawaii achieve its transition to clean energy and a better energy future.
Collateral Analytics, a Hawaii-based tech company empowering the real estate industry with greater and faster access to the tools and data they need to make better informed property investment decisions.
I'm Nicole Horry. Thanks so much for joining us on ThinkTech.
I'm Maria Kashem. See you next time.
Aloha, my name is Mike DeWert. I'm the Chief Scientist for ThinkTech Hawaii. I'm also on the board of the Hawaii Academy of Science, and I'm the Energy Chair for the Environmental Caucus of the Democratic Party of Hawaii, amongst other things. Next week, on the 19th of September, I'm going to be doing a show with Jay. The topic will be how the 18th century had technology too. We'll talk about some of the technologies our ancestors had that we have forgotten and that we're going to need if civilization ever collapses. So, hope to see you then, and mahalo nui.
Hi, I'm Jay Fidell. This is ThinkTech Talks here on a given Friday at 3 p.m. And we have with us Erik Solderholm of Solderholm Bus. We're discussing the question of where have all the buses gone. And Erik has actually written some notes on my sheet. Oh, yes. Okay, we'll get to that too. Okay, so just to be logical about this, so you mentioned that there are various things that have made our buses go away. You want to enumerate or elaborate on that?
Well, all of this ties back into traffic. It all ties back into the fact that we're putting more cars on the road. And so by not running school buses, we have more cars on the road. But the other thing that's impacted, and so that's a state issue. Well, how the city's impacted us is they've cut city bus routes. And so what then happens is people who out on the North Shore or Waianae or something like that, literally by the time the buses get in closer to town, they're full and they pass people by. And you're sitting there and the next bus doesn't come. Used to be the buses would come every 15 minutes or every 20 minutes. Then they got to be every half an hour. I used to work at Kahuku Fire Station, and I used to catch the Circle Island bus from Nuuanu and fall asleep on the way out there, in 1975. And so I know, and the next stop was at Kuilima, and this was before cell phones, and I'd have to get to Kuilima, call my captain, and tell him I was going to catch the next one going back the other way, it saved my job because the bus ran every 15 minutes. But if you get people that when you get down to where it's a half an hour, 45 minutes, and then they pass it, then they lose interest in having a job because they can't get to their job and they get fired, and then their kids can't get to school. So the state says, oh, just put them on the city bus. Said, we'll put them on the city bus. And the state went to the city, and the city said, I don't think so. Because if you put more kids on the city bus, the city buses are packed. So, it comes down to priorities and where you're going to spend the money. But there's another aspect of this. It's state regulation. And before the bus system really started in Hawaii, we had lots of private jitneys. And what we have now in Hawaii is we are the most commie socialist state in the United States. And the reason why we are,
But you mean that in the nicest possible way.
nicest possible way.
Yeah.
You know, but the bottom line, the Public Utilities Commission, which is supposed to be regulating public utilities, monopolies, that so that they can set a fair rate of return and set a fair rate for their services, regulates private operators of trucks and buses in Hawaii. Only place in the United States they do that kind of thing. It's ridiculous. All across the United States that's been deregulated. Now you want bus operators to make sure they have proper safety checks, they have some kind of financial responsibility, they have proper insurance, and that's what they do in California, and that's what they do across the mainland. But if all of a sudden you were to open up, deregulate transportation in Hawaii, every mom and pop Jim Bob in the Western world would be out there driving buses, and you'd have buses going down there. And if a guy could make money basically coming from Kailua in the morning with a 25 passenger bus and give you Wi-Fi, take you over the hill, and take you in a faster service, in a nicer service, maybe he could make 2 runs in the morning, 2 runs in the afternoon, and take tourists out to the North Shore in the middle of the day. You could make
This would not be unsafe in any way.
No.
There's no downside to what you're describing.
They could recycle used buses. I'd sell more buses. It's a good thing. And so
So why don't we do that?
because we regulate the problem is that some of my customers are probably going to choke me because they favor regulation because they want that control. But
He who has the contract,
who has the license?
who has the license,
Yeah.
wants to remain there, and he wants to exclude his competition.
And I understand that. I'm a follower of Adam Smith. Not Karl Marx or Groucho Marx, but Adam Smith said
You heard it here on ThinkTech.
and every small businessman, what Adam Smith says, strives to create a monopoly, to sell less widgets for more money. And so I'm the same way. So. But anyway,
Okay, so we were tracking down what kinds of things have taken the buses off the road.
Yeah, and when I was a little kid and growing up in Kailua, Kailua Local used to operate a jitney service to Ala Moana Center, and that's how I went to the party room and got my fake dog poop and things like that, and that I could throw out on the sidewalk and play. I watched the trains at Sears, and basically got to play video games because we didn't have that. We were deprived in Kailua as a child, and so but you rode in this long stretched thing, and buses have improved since then, and so there's all kinds of things where you can engage the private enterprise by deregulating, but it's also about where the society is going to spend money. And the people that need transportation the most are the kids, the people coming to work. Now, it all comes back to how you're going to spend money. Okay, it comes back to the train. I mean, you could talk about
Among other things, and the train's not the only thing.
The train's not the only thing, but the train's one of the things. And the train is because originally the budget for the train was disapproved by the federal government. So the city had to rework the numbers, and in order to meet the contingencies and to meet the funds, they had to take money out of the bus system, federal money that was going for the purchase of buses in Hawaii. They had to put that in there. Now the city officials, I've dealt with 3 mayors on this. The city officials will tell you that they're not going to use those money. That it's just then why is it a line item on the budget if they're not going to use the money? And so what happens is right now, Hawaii has the oldest municipal bus fleet by average age in the United States of major metropolitan areas. And that impacts maintenance, that impacts safety, that impacts
quality of
quality, that can cost, and so what's going to happen, everybody thinks the train is it's all going to be paid for. It's no problem. Well, you've sucked 0.5% taxes out of the economy of this island for years. And that's billions of dollars that could have gone into the sewer, could have gone into the roads, could have gone into the elderly, could have gone into homeless, all these other issues that we have. And so people think it's only 0.5%, but it's billions of dollars that we've sucked out of this economy. So at the end, we're probably not going to be that far off from finishing this project on budget. But what's going to happen is the operating cost. That kills everybody. So you're going to go from a budget in the city of approximately 10% for transportation, double to 20%, from 100 million to 200 million. Where is this society? Where is this island get another $100 million when we have supposedly a balanced budget in the city and county of Honolulu right now, and Mayor Caldwell is cutting back services? We're cutting out the Satellite City Hall in Kailua.
Heard about that. Yeah.
And that's a legacy of Frank Fosse. Frank Fosse's thing was, that's probably one of the greatest things he created, was to take services and put them out in the outlying areas from central Honolulu.
Outreach.
And the whole thing is, that's another transportation issue, because they said on the TV the other night they only had 16 people per hour, at Satellite City Hall in Kailua. Well, that's 16 cars that don't have to go over the hill. My mom's 86 years old and lives in Kailua. Now, if she wants to go get a new dog license, she has to go drive over to Honolulu and probably get lost, before she gets back to Kailua. So you have to either drive to Kaneohe, or you have to drive into town. And one of the things they do, they said, oh, well, that was a lot of car dealer registrations. Like, car dealers aren't customers. I'm a member of Hawaii Auto Dealers Association. I sell buses, but I'm a motor vehicle dealer, just like Honolulu Ford or Cutter Ford. And the thing about it is, we're customers too. We pay taxes, we employ people. So why don't we have the right to go into the DMV? I know the car dealers in Kailua, they like that service. They like the fact that they can walk into the DMV and register cars, and they don't have to send somebody over the hill. So that impacts traffic. We did this whole thing in Kapolei to move people out, away from central Honolulu, so people don't have to, to drive into town. But what's going to happen is, when people see what the rail does, right now we have a pretty efficient transportation system from town out to the west side. We have buses running all the time, so you're going to take those buses away. In that short corridor, in the corridor from Makakilo, if you live in Makakilo, and you can drive down to the train station and park your car, because there's only one parking lot for 26 stations, and you get to go all the way and you work downtown, it's going to be fabulous. But most likely you rode the bus anyway. So what's going to happen is, those people are going to get a super benefit. But what's going to happen is the transportation system for the rest of the island, for the people on the east side, the people on the windward side, the people on the north shore, the people on the central Oahu, the people on the west side, is going to deteriorate. Because what's going to happen is, you're going to have less buses running there. Now, Grabakis, my boy who runs DeHart, who basically came from a failed transportation system in Boston, and we got him. We always get the winners. He says, "Oh, we're gonna redeploy those buses." It's not just redeploying the buses. That's not the problem. It's the cost of operating those buses. And so what's going to happen is, when you spend $100 million running the train, you're not going to have that money then to run more buses. And more buses actually impacts people tremendously. I've been fortunate to sell over 300 handy vans to the city and county of Honolulu since 1995. I've sold every handy van the city and county has ever bought. And I've learned a lot about humility from those people. You take these people's lives and how difficult it is for these people, to get to work, or to get to their rehabilitation, or to get to their dialysis treatment or whatever. And the handy van service has improved tremendously. And it's a super benefit to these people. There's approximately 16,000 people that are certified to ride on the handy van. And there's approximately 3,000 to 4,000 that ride every single day. And a lot of those are subscription, where they ride automatically every single day to a certain place. And that gets those people who, some of them were shut in, who couldn't do anything. They're productive, they're happy, they can get to work. They can go down to the downtown and play mahjong or whatever it is that they want to do. They have mobility.
And if there wasn't the handy van, none of that.
Well,
you would have to sit at home or wait for a ride from somebody who might not come.
Frank Fossey started the handy van service before it was mandated before ADA, before American Disability Act started. And so he started it originally with a guy named Gordon Fata. And I was at Bank of Hawaii doing it in their leasing company. And just a little bit before my time, my previous boss, Mike Carr, basically did the first financing for Gordon Fata's vans. And Gordon used to come in with this big gold chain on him, So he is an unusual character. but the handyman service, Fossey saw this as a way to help people, so now with ADA, some of this service is mandated. And now pretty much all the big buses are set up for ADA. They're set up with ramps and lifts and wheelchair tie-downs. But the problem with those buses is that they're not really conducive to severely disabled people. The handy van driver will get out, help the person, put them into the wheelchair lift, put them in, help them tie them down. And handy van operators, the drivers, they may cycle 20, 30, 40 lifts a day. They're very knowledgeable. The regular city bus drivers are not as knowledgeable. They're running a railroad basically down the thing, and they're trying to get people on and off quickly. And so sometimes that's a bad mix of people.
Speaking of railroads, we're going to take a break.
Okay, we're going off on a tangent.
We'll take this short break here. This is Erik Solderholm, Solderholm Bus. He's got a fair level of opinionation, I would say. We're talking about where have all the buses gone here on the ThinkTech Talks at the 3 o'clock block on Friday. I'm Jay Fidell. We'll be right back after this break.
And I can sing that song.
Aloha, this is Jay Fidell. ThinkTech and the Hawaii Venture Capital Association put on monthly luncheon panel programs at the Plaza Club here in Pioneer Plaza. Our program this time is on September 26th. It's called Solar in Hawaii. We're going to examine the solar industry and see what's in it for the long haul. We have a great panel, great moderator. We'll be sending out email on this. If you want to be in our email list to receive the details, check out thinktechhawaii.com. In any event, you can sign up for the program at hvca.org. Thanks. See you there. This is Jay Fidell. Mahalo. Hi, I'm Jay Fidell. Yes, this is ThinkTech, broadcasting on Ustream and Spreaker both day and night, doing its thing on OC16 and Olelo, and uploading videos all over YouTube. Check us out and see the links on thinktechhawaii.com. Mahalo. We're back, we're live, we're here streaming on Ustream and Spreaker and thinktechhawaii.com. It's ThinkTech Hawaii, where have all the buses gone, with Erik Solderholm of Solderholm Bus. And we've been talking about, what the factors are that have made the school buses go away and the bus system in general, decline. And I guess, at the end of the day, we need to talk about finances. You started talking about rail, of course. That's going to cost a lot of money. Who's to say exactly how much? But there's a competition in the city among many demands for big bucks. Let me just list them for you and see if you agree. One is we have an unpaid sewer bill that has existed for a long time, from the days of Mufi Hanneman at least. We have the homeless.
Prior to that.
Prior to that. Sure.
The mayors before him didn't fund that.
Yeah. It just gets worse.
It just gets worse and worse. And then Mufi, finally, made a big agreement with with the federal government and everything like that. And people say, oh well, it's all going to be paid, but do you realize how it's going to be paid? It's going to be paid by sewer fees that are going to go up and up and up. Now, if you've traveled outside, like to the third world, outside of Hawaii, I've surfed down in Indonesia and Bali and stuff, where literally their sewer system is a gutter next to the road. And what's going to happen is you've got people that are living on the edge in Hawaii that don't have enough money, that are just barely making their mortgage. And those people, right now, some of those people can turn off their electricity. You can do that. You could turn off the electricity and you can go get a kerosene Bunsen burner and cook out back and stuff like that. And you can do that out in, outside of Honolulu probably, But you can't turn off the sewer. And so what's going to happen, sewer fees are going to go through the roof. I mean, you're going to have people with combined water and sewer fees in the $500 or $600 range. What used to be a mortgage, people are going to have to pay that. How can people pay that when they're working at, a Kmart or Walmart for $10 an hour, $7 an hour? I mean, it's just astronomical.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
But that's not the end of it, though.
Yeah, it's not.
So then you get the homeless themselves, which is,
it's a huge problem.
Peter Ho, at one of our programs in Bank of Hawaii, he was selling this is an unliquidated liability of the community. It's going to cost billions to repatriate them all.
It is.
So the amount of money we'll have to spend is just enormous, and it's a brick wall. It's not going away until we fix it, and we have to do Herculean things to fix it.
I worked at the Bank of Hawaii with Peter Ho. He became the chairman, and I left to form a small business. Who's smarter? I'm not sure.
Well, he can't sell any buses. Okay, then we got the roads.
Yeah.
The roads. I mean, it's just sort of amazing that we talk about spending all the money on the rail and various other things, but the roads aren't fixed. And every day that you drive, you are reminded of that if you're driving with your eyes open. And it's all over the city.
I can tell you a kind of anecdotal story on the roads, and it was told to me by a friend of mine named Ray Smith, who's a retired Master Sergeant in the Marine Corps, and he was stationed in Okinawa during the Vietnam War. And Okinawa is very similar to Hawaii. It's far, far south of the main islands of Japan. It's a volcanic island, high island. It has a lot of rain, just like Hawaii and stuff. And people always say, well, the roads in Hawaii, they're potholed because, volcanic kinds of things and everything like that. And that's the problem. And it's not. It's the construction of the roads. That's the problem. All we do is we go out there. Mayor Caldwell goes out the first day he was out there. Is that what we want for a mayor? Do we want someone going out there filling a pothole? Is he even efficient at doing that? And what happens was during the occupation of after World War II, the United States occupied Okinawa. And so what they did was they brought in, contractors from Hawaii to go repave the roads of Okinawa, and they were just crap. And then the Japanese finally, in 1972, took over Okinawa, not really Okinawa back, because Okinawa was an independent nation at one time, but they took over control of Okinawa, and they brought in Japanese contractors. And the Japanese contractors are sort of like my Deutschlander brothers in Germany. And they go down about 3 or 4 feet, and they dig up the whole thing, and they make a base out of they go back and forth with big rollers, and they compact the thing, and they take out all of these holes that we have in our road beds, and then the roads can last for 20 years. All we're doing right now is spending hundreds and hundreds of $1 millions just repaving, and we're trying to make it all good.
So fixing the base.
No, we're not fixing the base. And so what happens is, so Mayor Caldwell wants to get elected again. So he repaved Liliha Street. I come home up Liliha Street sometimes. I'm happy because the road's repaved. I mean, oh great, I'm going to vote for Kirk. But the problem is, a year later, it looks like hell again. And that's the problem and this is what we do. We just throw money at all these solutions, and we don't. We should go back and go drive. And part of it is the political structure that we have on this island. We have so many government entities. We got the federal government, we've got the state government, and then we've got the city government. And they all have overlapping. So they say, well, that's a city road, or that's a state road, or that's a federal road. And so really this island is probably too small for so many political subdivisions that we have. But in the cost of running that government is directly relative to how much services that we actually get. And so the by spending the amount of money that we're doing on roads, and then we don't get them fixed, and then there's more issues on your.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
see, you get all excited about that one, and then we go to the next one, and you're going to get more excited about it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go down the list.
Okay.
The next one, and this is not necessarily in order of logic or amount, but is the elderly. In fact, it's funny that you should mention this and write it down in my notes and be sure to include it,
Yeah.
because I've been thinking about this lately too. I mean, the elderly are getting a bad shake now, and it's going to get much worse.
Yeah.
And it's ultimately going to be our social obligation to take care of them. In the old days, their families would, Ohana would, neighbor islands had all these wonderful kind of everybody worked together communities to make a good life for the elderly people. That doesn't happen anymore. It costs a lot of money to stay alive. What are we going to do about that?
It's Jerry, my Rotary friend from the head of Catholic Charities, he just talked about that. He's still going around the state doing that. And it's the next thing, that the homeless hit us, and we never really did anything. We've just tried to push them around the island, And so the elderly, I'm going to be 60 next month, and so
Nobody knew that until now.
No,
but okay.
no.
Now they know.
And so my wife says I look more like 59, and so but the bottom line is that the homeless are coming, and the statistics are going to be staggering, because we're going to double the amount of people over 65 and older in probably 10 years or so, and the only real there's just like any other issue, there's multitudes of solutions or ways to deal with it. We had a multi-generational families for years that people would just live and die in the same house, and there still is that. There's still
some of that.
There's some of that. In the Hawaiian community, you'll find families that are.
But there's a lot of elderly people who have no place to go and no money to go there.
And it's a problem. And the least expensive way to deal with those people is to keep them in their houses as long as you can. And instead of going out, we don't have the amount of care homes in Hawaii. I mean, an average care home, Hawaii Kai care home,
expensive.
$4,000 a month. People don't have that. I mean, you get guys.
You can find them at much more than that too.
Yeah, way more than that. I'm talking just a run of the mill kind of thing. I mean, you can go into a care house out like in Waipahu or something like that, but for probably less than that. But you basically have to sell your home a lot of times. But you can get a caregiver to come into your house maybe $1,000 a month or something like that.
That's a better way to go. But going to the point though, this is ultimately an obligation of government to take care of people, because they've worked all their lives. Whatever they get in Social Security isn't enough. The real estate market has not treated them well. Their employer retirement hasn't treated them well. And they're going to be either on the street or government's going to have to take care of them.
Well,
it's another competing demand on government, especially city government.
I don't necessarily agree with you, Jay, that it's all government thing. I'm a Howley Republican, bald-headed Howley Republican, and so
we all have our issues.
Yeah, so I believe in a certain amount that you got to do for yourself, but at the same time, if those things fail, if there's not enough money to Social Security, if there's not enough money, to do these things, then the effect is the elderly become homeless, and it does become
tragic
and a burden on society and a burden on those people.
Okay, so it's just another obligation.
It's another
tally all these things up, and it's
10,
20, 30, 40 billion dollars the taxpayers of the state are going to have to pay, not for current services, but for catch up.
No.
The other last one, which I wanted to hold till last, I only this week published an article about this, is sea level rise. It's not only sea level rise, it's climate change in general, where you have unpredictable storms that do incredible damage, and we don't have a fund, repository to pay for that damage, and we are not making any particular plans or saving any money, developing any reserves, to deal with sea level rise, which threatens our economy and everything.
Well, they're talking about Sandy that hit New York.
Sure.
And they were saying that basically what they need to have in New York Harbor is a series of levees and series of breakwaters and things that they can regulate. And many of the major harbors in the world have those right now.
That's true.
In the Netherlands, in Shanghai, in
Yes.
China, lots of
With
places.
specific regard to sea level rise.
For sea level
done for that purpose.
and for storms,
Yeah.
to be able to deal with that.
Yeah.
And we don't have that in Hawaii.
We haven't got even the beginning of
We
it.
don't have anything, and so you
So
know,
I'm just saying that's
Oh,
another
it's-
factor where we're going to have to write big checks.
Oh, yeah.
And so here, my final question, we only have a minute or two left, is where are we going to get the money to fix the buses, to put the buses back on the road when we have to spend all this money on other things, which actually in some ways, those other things are more emergent. Yeah?
I can give it in 2 words: Maki rail.
I thought you were going to say raise taxes.
No.
No.
I'm a Republican. A Maki rail. Kill it now. And let's go down and support Mrs. Kalakini. Who basically stopped the rail in the first place. And let's take Ben Cayetano and Cliff Slater and Randy Roth and give them the Nobel Peace Prize.
I think I get the show. It's a wrap. That's as far as we can go with this. Thank you, Erik Solderholm. Interesting discussion. Erik Solderholm, Solderholm Bus. Here's on a ThinkTech Talks. Where have all the buses gone? Here on a Friday at 3 p.m. Thanks for coming down.
And I got a free water.
There it is. Aloha. We'll be back in a few minutes, actually, with ThinkTech Friday and Attila Ceres. Aloha.